Welcome back to the shop, my friends. Steve here at SKS Props, and I'm back with another build series. In the spirit of Starship Troopers, which is an armor set that I made a couple years ago for DragonCon, a fairly substantial group has grown from that, which is awesome to see. So we're going back, and this time we're going as a group of Cadians from Warhammer 40K. Now, because it's a full armor set, this is going to be a multi-part video. This specific video will focus on the upper body, so it'll be the chest, the shoulders, and the forearm. Another thing that's unique about this particular build is I'm still trying to teach myself some 3D modeling. So if you have a printer at home, elements of this costume you can print off. And the reason I'm doing that, as an example, these shoulder pads here are 3D printed because I wanted them to have a little bit of a weight and heft to them. If you don't have a 3D printer though, I still have the free foam files available over on my website that you can download and build right along with the video. The only exception to that at this point is, of course, the helmet. This is actually the first 3D model and print of a helmet I have ever done on my own, and I'm pretty proud of it. Now, this particular one, the mask is removable, or it can actually rotate up so you can put it on your head and then rotates down into place. This is one that I would like to have some free templates available in foam in the future. I just haven't got around to doing that because I'm busy as it is, right? So I want to show you what it takes to put the upper half of this Cadian together. Let's go ahead and get started. The main body of the chest armor is going to be made up of part A, and this piece is going to be traced and cut out of some 10mm foam. Making sure to note some registration points for where part B will be lining up in the middle. One thing to note is that the lower outside edge needs to be cut at an angle. Part B will be making up a raised detail for the chest. This will also be traced and cut out of some 10mm foam. On this piece, you'll also notice that there are angled cuts along the outside edges. Now, your angles, they don't have to be perfect, and they can be created several different ways. You could use a bandsaw or a scroll saw. My friend at Rocket Props makes the bevel tool, or you could do a rough cut and then clean it up with your rotary tool. The foam is manipulated with heat and then rounded back at the top of the chest. This will help it better conform. And to adhere part B, I'm going to be doing my double adhesive method using some weldwood contact cement and a bead of super glue along the perimeter. I'd recommend to start in the middle and make sure that lines up perfect, then work your way out. And notice how I'm slightly rounding the foam on the sides and at the top while I'm gluing this into place. Part C is going to make up the side profile to the chest, and this is also going to be traced and cut out of some 10mm foam. Just like I had done the angled cut on part A, this is going to need an angle too. Also on the template, notice that I have a designated area where you could add more material or remove some so that the chest armor fits you. After the contact cement had been allowed to dry, part C could be firmly pressed in place. The abdominal section for this armor is going to be made up of part D, which will also be traced and cut out of some 10mm foam. Using my template, I do note on the back side where I need to remove some foam to get an angle on the front. This is achieved by slicing about halfway through the foam and then removing material with my rotary tool. I can then fill this gap with contact cement and super glue to get a nice clean angle on the front. I also noted a line, and this is going to be my glue point to affix it to the back side of part A. Once again, start in the middle, and then as I work my way out, I'm rounding the foam as I glue the two pieces together. To make sure that the upper section of this chest keeps its curve, I'm going to glue some small strips of 2mm foam to the back side. With the front of my chest looking pretty good, it's time to start on the back. Part E will make up the back, and this piece will need to be mirrored for the opposite side. This template will also be traced and cut out of some 10mm foam. Take notice that there is a dart on the side, and just like part D, there are going to be slice lines for the back. This will allow the side sections to angle in and meet up with part C. But first I'm going to glue this dart together by heating the foam and rounding it. This will help relax the shape, and then I can use some contact cement to glue the dart together. This will allow for a compound curve along the upper section of the back. Contact cement can now be added to the central seam and the two halves can be put together, and I would recommend to work from the bottom up. With the two halves glued together, I can now work on the angled cuts. After contact cement and super glue is applied, I do add some high temp Cosplay hot glue from Surebonder for reinforcement. If you are using high temp hot glue, a tongue depressor works great to smooth it out. Just like I had done for the front, the upper sections of the back are also curved using the 2mm strips of foam. Part F is going to make up a raised detail for the back and also needs to be traced and cut out of some 10mm foam. Just like several of the other sections, this piece will also have angled edges. After this piece has been cut out and heat sealed, it can be glued to the back side. I've got a bunch of parachute clips and tri-glides, but I don't need them black, so I'm going to be using some Rust-Oleum gunmetal gray to give them a nice metallic sheen. All the straps from the chest are going to be made using some 1.5" nylon, and the placement is designed to match the look in Space Marine 2, and links for all of these pieces can be found on the template. The first thing to do is glue the 4-inch piece around one end of the tri-glide. This part of the strap is going to go right at the top of part B. The next thing to do is take the longest one and mark the fold and the weave. Hot glue can be applied about 2 inches from the fold, but leaving the very end of this strip unglued. Weaving the end of this strip through the tri-glide that I'd already assembled and then hot gluing it to the back side. Again using a tongue depressor for even pressure. And here I'm just showing it again from another angle so you can get it right. I will have links to the straps, parachute clips, and tri-glides down in the description. The parachute clips for the sides are going to be using the 8-inch template. After the nylon has been cut, it then can be glued together at either end. Using part G and some 10mm foam, I'm going to be creating some caps for where the straps go into the armor. Cut out the cap and then mark on the bottom an area that needs to be removed with a rotary tool. Go about halfway through the material and that should give you enough space for the strap. You'll notice on the template that I marked several locations of where these caps and the straps will go. Using a very well sharpened hobby blade, I can now cut through the armor where the straps are going to be inserted. The only one that is not marked is where the strap will go at the top of part B. After the foam has been cut, the end with the tri-glide can then be inserted through the foam. The other end can then be pulled through the back until the two foam edges line up. This process can then be repeated for the straps on the sides. Now if you did add extra materials to parts C and E, the length of your nylon for this strap needs to be increased so that it fits you. And here you can see how the foam caps will be attached to the armor. Now if you do have a 3D printer, I made a couple of models for these as well that could be used in place of the foam. Like my other STLs, I have links down in the description. But no matter if you're using the foam or the prints, the caps can now be glued to the armor. I have not secured these straps into place yet because I want to paint my armor first. For the Aquila or Imperial Eagle, this was also 3D printed, but I've included the design on the template if you want to make one out of foam. This print was cleaned up and then lightly heated to get it curved before it was super glued onto the chest. If you do end up using the print file, I would recommend to reduce the thickness to about half. I decided to add a ring around the neck of the armor, and to make this I'm going to be using about a 3/8 strip of 10mm foam. The one for the front of the neck is cut to approximately 16.5 inches. A thing to note here is that the backside is cut at an angle to make it a little more flush. And there's more material than necessary, so after you've glued it down, trim away the excess. You're going to repeat this process for the back armor, cutting another strip about 14.5 inches. It's now time to make the shoulders, and like I mentioned in the beginning, I did model these and print these off, and I have free files available down in the description section. And again, I 3D printed mine because I wanted them to have some weight, to have some heft to them. Now, if you don't have a 3D printer, it's not a problem. I still have PDF files for the ones in foam, and if you notice, they're almost exactly the same size. The foam shoulder armor is going to be made up of part H. These are also going to be traced and cut out of some 10mm foam. I heat the foam to manipulate this shape to start to get that compound curve that I'm going for. And because this central seam is going to have a lot of pressure on it, I'm definitely using contact cement here. After the contact cement had been allowed to dry, I like to start at the top and then work my way down. That way I can control how the seam lines up and hopefully make it a little less noticeable. To match my 3D model and to make sure that the bottom of this armor keeps this rounded shape, part I is going to be traced and cut out of some 10mm foam. Starting at one end of the armor, this strip is going to be glued into place while the shoulder armor is rounded. Again, cut away any excess foam to make it flush after it's been attached. But it's awesome because this strip adds a visual detail, but it also makes sure that this armor keeps its shape. Going back to my 3D print, even though the print came out great, it still needs to be cleaned up. So I start by smoothing it out with a foot sander before I add some 2-in-1 filler primer. Now, not all Cadians have forearm armor, so you don't have to add this. But if you'd like to add this additional armor to your set, transfer parts J and K onto some 10mm foam. The interior cuts on these pieces need to be at an angle so that it wraps around your arm properly. At this point, I'm not adding straps to the armor yet because I want to paint everything all at once, and I still need to make the belt and all the armor for the legs. But this is a great start for the build, and I've got a lot of people messaging me that are excited to make theirs. At this point, I know I don't have a tutorial on how to finish or paint the helmet, but if you want to get a jump start on 3D printing the parts, I'll have links down below. So at this point, you can see what it takes to put together the upper armor for this Cadian soldier. And be sure to swing back by for part 2. We're going to be working on the lower half, so the belt, the thighs, the knees, and the shins. And if you are building any of my builds or utilizing some HD foam, be sure to tag me at SKSProps on Twitter and Instagram because I love seeing your creations. Until next time, build your best with the best. HD foam.